What's up everybody, and welcome back to the Cyclonic Thrift channel. Today we're back at it again with another new card from the Modern Horizons 3 set. This one takes me back to my roots a little bit. I love land-based strategies, and this one is firmly entrenched, no pun intended, in land-based strategies. It's Jyoti, Moag Ancient. 2, a green and a blue, so Simic, again, love that combo. For a legendary creature, when Jyoti enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 green forest dryad land creature token for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. So it scales as the game goes along. And at the beginning of each combat, land creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is its power. So two things here. One, that first ability, very cool. Forest Dryad, the land creature tokens is something we haven't seen very much of, but it comes back around this time. It's going to help you ramp a little bit, get some creatures on the board. This deck is going to be all about land creatures, as you can kind of tell from that second ability. But on top of the land creatures, we want to focus on the combat aspect of that. We want to pump up these land creatures as big as possible, give them some sort of evasion, give them trample, swing them in for a ton of damage. I mean, that basically doubling all of your land creatures' power on combat is gonna be as much of a buff as you possibly need with some of these creatures that we're turning from our lands into minions that we can send out against our opponents. Another wrinkle to this is it's at the beginning of each combat, not just your own. So these land creatures that you're creating are going to get buffed and be able to serve as even better blockers as your opponents are trying to attack into you. So we're looking to sit back, do a bunch of Simic stuff, ramp, draw cards, make creatures out of our lands, and just take advantage of a lot of fun interactions that we can make from our lands being creatures that you don't usually get to take advantage of. But first, we got to turn our lands into creatures. Simple as that. So we've got cards like Wind Zendikon. It's 1 blue for an enchantment aura. You enchant a land, and it's a 2/2 blue elemental creature with flying, still a land. And when the land is put into a graveyard, you return it to your hand, basically. So it provides some insurance for when this creature gets destroyed, which really is the one downside here. Your lands are, in Magic, lands are historically impervious to most removal. I mean, land destruction is a whole big thing, frowned upon in a lot of circles. But when you're turning your lands into creatures, you're kind of removing yourself from that circle, because you're opening yourself up, you're opening your lands up to a much wider base of possible removal, and it makes a lot more sense for your opponents to take out your lands this way. So provides some insurance, gives the land flying as well, so some evasion when you're trying to attack, makes it a better blocker when your opponents are attacking into you. This is a nice low 1-drop that we'll be able to get out really early and get our strategy rolling. Next is Waker of the Wilds, 2 and 2 green for a 3/3 creature Merfolk Shaman. Has one ability. You pay X and 2 green to put X +1/+1 counters on target land you control. That land becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with haste. It's still a land. So this is a nice, easy, mana dump, repeatable ability. If you want to make one massive land, you absolutely can. If you want to make 2 or 3 1/1 lands, you want to go wide, you can also do that. It's not a tap ability, which is huge, so as long as you have enough mana, which again in Simic you will most likely have enough mana, you're going to be able to churn out a bunch of these land creatures over the course of a few turns. And then we've got Awakening of Vitu-Ghazi, 3 and 2 green for an instant. You put 9 +1/+1 counters on target land you control. It becomes a legendary 0/0 elemental creature with haste named Vitu-Ghazi. It's still a land. So this is a fun one. You're paying 5 mana to make a 9/9 with haste. It's an instant, so you get to play tons of combat tricks with this. Opponents are attacking into you. They have enough power to get through. You cast this card, turn your land into a creature to then eat their biggest thing. You can have a lot of fun with this, but really just the payoff of paying 5 to get a 9/9 land creature is more than worth it in this deck. But hey, once we make our lands into creatures, we want to find ways to buff them up, give them abilities, give them evasion. Again, this is a very combat-focused deck because we're looking to make our lands into creatures and turn them sideways as much as we can. So the first card here is Halimar Tidecaller, 2 and a blue for a 2/3 creature human wizard ally. When it enters the battlefield, you may return target card with Awaken from your graveyard to your hand. Spoiler alert, there are no cards with Awaken in this deck. I did not choose this card for that ability. I chose it for the second one. Land creatures you control have flying. I mean, the biggest thing with land creatures is they are ground bound. Again, no pun intended. So being able to give them flying, again, not just for the attacking to give them evasion, but also when your opponents are attacking into you, having flying blockers is huge in Magic. And this card gives you everything you would need with that. Next is Sylvan Advocate, 1 and a green for a 2/3 creature elf druid ally, has vigilance, and as long as you control 6 or more lands, Sylvan Advocate and land creatures you control get +2/+2. So this was in the first deck I ever had. It was a Naya Landfall deck with Obun Moldiah Ancestor. I loved this card. One, because its ability is super easy to get online. Again, 6 or more lands in Simic is nothing. You will easily get this online. And the +2/+2 to all the land creatures is sick. Mainly because you're giving the land creatures +2/+2, and then when combat comes, your commander is giving them essentially another +2/+2 or whatever their power is. So you're with this ability, with this card and your commander, you're giving your land creatures +4/+4 at combat. It's gonna snowball really, really fast. And then Earth Surge, it's 3 and a green for an enchantment. Each land gets +2/+2 as long as it's a creature. So this is a more global effect. It will affect the lands your opponents control, but most likely your opponents are not playing a land creature deck. So it's really a one-sided benefit, and that just blanket +2/+2 is really nice. Again, with Sylvan Advocate, you got to jump through some hoops. With Earth Surge, you do not. And then I said this is a combat-based deck, so we have to include some cards, some finishing cards that are going to help us overrun the game, so to speak. And the first card is Overrun. 2 and 3 green for a sorcery. Creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. Now again, with your commander out and you cast this before combat, it's essentially giving your land creatures +6/+6 in trample till end of turn, which is just incredibly brutal. Next is Overwhelming Encounter, 3 and 2 green for a sorcery. Creatures you control gain vigilance and trample until end of turn, and then you roll a dice to have some kind of effect. Again, the worst one here is you get +2/+2 for your creatures. With your commander, it becomes +4/+4. Then you could put +2/+1 counters on each creature, which is very nice. If you don't happen to win on this turn, it's going to help set you up for the next turn to take people down. And if you roll in that 20, you get 4 +1/+1 counters on each creature. Which, yeah, if you don't win at that point, I mean, again, that's giving your creatures +8/+8 basically for combat. Then you cast this card at the wrong time. And then Enduray's Forerunners, 5 and 3 green for 7/7 creature boar, Vigilance, Trample, Haste. When it enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain Vigilance and Trample until end of turn. Again, with your commander, it's +4/+4. This will also win you the game. Again, you got to pick and choose when you play these cards because you want to get them down in a position when you're in a position to win the game on that turn. And opponents might have some removal, and that's fine. That's how the game goes. But you want to make sure you do everything in your power not to give them as much opportunity as possible to slow you down. And then that brings us to the vegetable portion of the deck. For those of you who haven't seen the channel before, the vegetable portion is the part where I talk through some categories of cards that you absolutely have to include in your deck if you want to keep pace with the higher budget, higher power decks at the table. Those categories are ramp, card draw, and removal, and we'll just run through some cards in each category real quick. First is Harvest Season, 2 and a green for a sorcery. Search your library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the number of tapped creatures you control. Put those cards onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. You've got Llanowar Loam Speaker, 1 and a green for a creature elf druid. You tap to add 1 mana of any color. You also tap to have a target land you control become a 3/3 elemental creature with haste until end of turn. You can activate only as a sorcery. And then you've got Druid class, 1 and a green, has some levels. The first level is whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Level 2 is you may play an additional land on each of your turns. And level 3 is when this becomes level 3, target land you control becomes a creature with haste, and this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control, and it's still a land. So this one's nice because, again, that life gain at the beginning, that second level is a ramp spell, basically. It's a continual ramp spell, being able to drop an extra land each turn. And then level 3 fits right into the strategy. We're making a massive creature out of one of our lands. It's going to be the biggest creature we have because we're going to have a ton of lands out in the battlefield. Moving on to card draw, we've got Eureka Moment, 2, a green and a blue for an instant. Draw 2 cards. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Jorel, Voice of Zhalfir, 2, a green and a blue for a 3/3 legendary creature human druid. A lot of text here. At the beginning of combat on your turn, up to 1 target land you control becomes an XX green and blue bird creature with flying and haste until end of turn. So right in our strategy, where X is the number of cards in your hand, and it's still a land. And then whenever a land creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So it's in this category for that second ability, but the first one is also super interesting because it's for free at the beginning of combat. We are making an XX land creature. And we can stack this trigger with our commander so that this one goes off first, so we make the creature and then double its power with our commander's ability. So it's kind of the best of both worlds here. It's a perfect fit. Then you've got Frantic Search, 2 and a blue for an instant. Draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards, untap up to 3 lands. And moving on to removal, we've got Broken Bond, 1 and a green for a sorcery. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Unwind, 2 and a blue for an instant. Counter target non-creature spell. Untap up to 3 lands. Similar to Frantic Search, with that untap lands ability, it's pretty sweet. Especially because a lot of our lands will also be creatures. So say we attacked on our turn with a bunch of creatures, kind of went shields down there. With this card and with Frantic Search, we can untap the lands that are creatures and therefore have those blockers for the rest of the turn rotation, giving us a little bit more security and a little bit more ability to swing out on our turns, as our deck wants to do. And then Consuming Tide, 2 and 2 blue for a sorcery. Each player chooses a non-land permanent they control. Return all non-land permanents not chosen this way to their owner's hands. Then you draw a card for each opponent who has more cards in their hand than you. This card is also technically could be a finisher if it's played in the right way, because if most of your creatures are lands, they are unaffected by this. You do not have to worry about returning them to your hand. Everybody else's creatures are going to be gone. So if you play this right, again, before combat, you return everybody's creatures to their hands except one if they choose to save it. And then you swing in for a ton of damage. They've got no blockers. This can win you the game easily. And that brings us to the Thrift pick of the deck. For those, again, who haven't seen the channel before, the Thrift pick is a card that maybe I don't necessarily think is objectively the best in the deck, but it's the card I'm very, very excited to play. A card that I think fits really well into the strategy, is very, very synergistic and flavorful. It's a card that if I see it in my opening hand, or my hand at all, at any point in the game, I am very excited to play it. And that card for this deck is Tatiova, Steward of Tides. It's 2 green and a blue for a 3/3 legendary creature merfolk druid. Land creatures you control have flying, so right off the bat, give it evasion, give it a stat for blocking. Excellent. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands, up to 1 target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental creature with haste, and it's still a land. So again, this is Simic, so that 7 or more lands criteria is not going to be a problem. We're going to hit that pretty quickly. And then it just becomes landfall, create a land creature that's a 3/3, and with our commander becomes a 6/6 at the beginning of combat. This is going to churn out a ton of value. It gives all of those land creatures flying as well. This is going to be a powerhouse. You get this down early, absolutely. Get this down before your commander comes out, and you're going to be set up in a really, really good position to overwhelm the board. And that brings us to the end of the deck tech. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like the video, comment down below if you can think of any cards I might have missed. I love landfall, land-based strategies, so please let me know if there's any cards that you think I should have included, might have missed as I was looking up the deck. And yeah, if you're not already, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, stay safe, stay thrifty.